All right, very fancy. Look at that.
What an intro.
Welcome to Floor's Yours, an extension of Five on the Floor here on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thank you for joining us. We'll get to our host today, and of course, you're also our host. That's what we do Floor's Yours for. This is really your show. Sponsored, as always, by our friend Mark Brown, PA. You find him at markbrownpa.com right here in Fort Lauderdale. If you got any estate planning to do, also if you need to get your house closed on, your condo closed on, Mark took care of this for me. There he is, helping you build a better future with a big lake. Just jumped right in there, Mark did. Took care of my title for me. $295 if you mention Five Reasons. So make sure you check him out. So the benefit here is you can do your estate planning. There's the number 954-566-5678, 954-566-5678. So you can do your estate planning. Also, many estates have property, right? So he's really good at the property stuff. So make sure you reach out to Mark. Big Miami sports fan, big supporter of Five Reasons, has been since the beginning. Really good guy. Based right in North Lauderdale, over by the Hooters, Andrews and Cypress Creek, if you know that area. And you can definitely check him out there in the office. And again, call the number 954-566-5678. All right, let's get to it tonight. Here's the crew. We've got Greg Sylvander next to me. We've got Alex Toledo right above him. The Alex Toledo. Sorry, inside joke. Won't be inside much longer. And above me, Brady Hawk.
Great try.
Brady Hawk, who has not been kicked off of the pressers yet, even though he's actually asking these detailed questions that everybody got mad at Alex about last year, because they're used to getting sort of the cliche, whatever, and he's breaking down the press. So I think Spoelstra's going to banish him and send him somewhere to Alaska or something like that.
No, they like Brady.
They do like Brady. I'm surprised because if I asked those questions, they'd kill me. All right, let's get to it. I did an episode with Ira this morning on OnsideRadio.com. For those who did not hear it, sometimes we tend to just throw our reporting out there. Like, we don't really talk about it beforehand. What have you heard? What have you heard? Here's what he's heard about Victor Oladipo. So, yeah, this is not my reporting. This is Ira's reporting, but we should react to this, is that there's actually a patellar issue, and it was described as what was supposed to be a 4 to 6 week injury from the beginning, which essentially would put him back at the start of the playoffs. Again, I've heard such mixed things on Oladipo that I'm just going to acknowledge that my reporting has been all over the place because our sources have been all over the place on this. But I will go to you on this, Greg. If I was to say, water gun to your head, because we don't use the real thing here, water gun to your head, Victor Oladipo plays for the Miami Heat again this season. You say?
Yes, he does. Absolutely. I think I don't see how the people around him, never mind him as a competitor himself, but the people around him, his business people, I don't think anybody is going to instruct him to stay off the court. That unknown, I feel like, is a bigger risk than getting back out on the court. And I don't know, maybe I'll be wrong about that and I'll be proven wrong and he won't play at all. I feel like I was trying to Google what exactly we're talking about here. Is this a dislocation of a kneecap kind of situation?
Yeah, essentially it's a kneecap dislocation.
I mean, that doesn't sound great to me.
Well,
I'm no doctor.
Isn't that what I had that, by the way, at one point with my knee. But what
was your timeline?
Isn't that what's it's been
at least 30, it's not 6 to 8 weeks, guys.
30 years, Alex. 30 years is the timeline before he gets totally healthy.
Damn.
But what how exactly didn't Zoe, what was Zoe's injury? Wasn't it that?
The final injury in Atlanta, it may have been. I'll check.
That's what it was. I thought that's what it was. All right, so let's, regardless of circumstances, is it wise, Alex, for him to play again this season?
Yeah, it is wise. Maybe he doesn't have to play every game, but especially like in the playoff scenario where it's not like this shortened season, or at least I don't know. I haven't seen a playoff schedule. But I just normally think of the playoffs as like a time where guys can have a couple of days of rest in between games. Maybe that's not the case this year. Who knows? I don't know yet. But so that makes me feel a little bit better about it. I mean, he should take his time until he feels comfortable. I obviously don't know anything about when he's coming back. But to me, it just seems like if he doesn't, it's just going to hurt him in the offseason. He's already turned down. And I feel like I mentioned this all the time, but he's already turned down an extension with the Rockets for, 2 years. 40 something.
Bad idea as it turned out. Yeah.
Something similar with the Pacers. And obviously he's not getting that back now, but if he doesn't play, like, he's just going to leave teams with, I mean, I don't know how he gets anywhere near the money that he turned down. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't, and we know that he wants to be here, and we like you've got to think that he knows that,
Yeah.
like what's going on. You know what I'm saying? Like he's got to know that if he plays, it's going to be better for him to actually stay here. Like it's going to actually make it easier for them to retain him. Whereas like if he doesn't play, it's just going to make it a lot easier for them to move on and be like, we're going to just go all in on Lowry.
Brady, Ira and I were bouncing this idea together. I don't think we've checked with you on this, but Greg and I and Alex talked about it on the pod last night, which is essentially if you can't take Kendrick Nunn out of the starting lineup, which I don't know how you can take Kendrick Nunn out of the starting lineup. I mean, unless he goes into like a 2-week valley here, and even so, I think that would be difficult. That essentially the only real solution here is to play 10 with 3 of them being guards, right? I mean, with Dragic, Herro, and Oladipo. And Ira was kind of, we were talking about the politics of this and the idea of putting your best asset, which is Herro, in deep freeze, which is not something necessarily that the front office may want to do, even if maybe Spoelstra, and I'm not saying Spoelstra does, but I'm saying even if the coach did. Is it possible for that 3-guard rotation off the bench to work? Because to me, it sounds better on paper than in reality.
I just don't think in general that a 10-man rotation just fits what they're trying to do. I think when you're looking at Erik Spoelstra, he just never, seems to fit that type of play style. And you're looking at, you mentioned the 3-guard lineups. Some of those lineups we're talking about with Goran and Tyler headlining them, it gets back to the defensive issues. Even though you have Victor Oladipo, we don't know what he's going to be defensively, if this knee's bothering him, if he comes back. So there's a lot of defensive issues there. I don't know if he could play those type of lineups. I think it comes down to, possibly him choosing nights between Goran and Tyler, who hasn't, maybe plugging each in, seeing how they go. And then second half, they go 9-man rotation. It just seems odd to me that, you're talking about a front office decision with Tyler Herro, but I don't know if Erik Spoelstra would want to do it as well, because a confidence thing with Tyler Herro, the thing that he thrives off of, the thing that's his headliner, knocking down confidence in him, that he's benched in a playoff setting, that he was the one playing all of the fourth quarter minutes, leading the league in fourth quarter minutes, to not playing at all. Kendrick Nunn was able to do that. When Kendrick Nunn went from the guy to not playing at all, he's the type of person that's able to just plug back in. But I just don't think they're as sure that Tyler's capable of doing that as they were with Kendrick Nunn. By
the way, we'll try to get to your comments, and we will. And I appreciate the comment from Dennis, and we'll go to these. You want to use the super chat?
That Lakers game from last night.
Well, you did 37. But if you want to donate a little on the super chat, we definitely read your comments. So that's kind of the way that works. Oh, look at that, to help beat this internet. Thank you very much. I'm actually using the wireless today. All right, Brady. But to that point though, you say about the defense. I mean, and I get it. Oladipo may not come back the same defensively as when he left. But that 5-man unit would essentially have Dedmon and Iguodala in it with Oladipo. So I feel like you could hide Herro and Dragic a little bit defensively there. My bigger issue is offensively. You mentioned it, and Greg, this would be one of my concerns, is that Herro does thrive off the bounce and off his own bounce. Like he gets into a rhythm by shooting a lot in a small period of time. We saw this last year. If he's going to be on the court with Goran and Oladipo, even if Iguodala and Dedmon are kind of non-shooters, I don't really see him getting into rhythm. And the other problem with Herro, and again, Ira and I did a whole segment on this today. The other problem with Herro is Herro needs to play with Jimmy. And I don't really know if you go to a 10-man rotation how that happens very often, because typically Jimmy has been used, none was last night, but to anchor the 4-man bench units. Right, but if you're going to be rolling 5 and playing Iguodala in that spot or Oladipo, you really can't.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's a weird spot where Herro, we talk about him thriving off of confidence, but Kendrick Nunn's kind of whole, niche is also that is once he gets confident, he plays better, and he's gotten buried a couple times, and it's going to be interesting to see that dynamic with Herro, because you're right. Like, I don't know that with Goran and Depot, and Adrian made a good comment here about maybe Depot can play the very directed and specific minutes that Avery Bradley was meant to come here and play. So maybe there's a role for him that way. That's obviously not what we intended, but maybe that's a way to stagger guys to get Herro more Jimmy minutes. Cause to your point, like that is when he's looked his best.
Well, and they were planning. That's a good point. We forget Avery Bradley was here because it really didn't seem like it. But the point was for him to be one of 5 guards that was essentially playing if you're going to include Duncan as a guard. Alex, let me throw this at you. And thank you, John, for the comment. This would bump Duncan to more of a 3 than the 2. He can't defend certain threes. That's true. But let's go to you on this, Alex. If I was to say to you right now, the chances that next season that the 5 guards who could potentially be playing now, Duncan Robinson, Kendrick Nunn, Victor Oladipo, Tyler Herro, and Goran Dragic, are all on the roster at the start of next season, how would you handicap that?
I mean, it doesn't seem that unrealistic to me. How would I figure that out in the rotation? I mean, that's still
not even the rotation, but you're saying it's not unrealistic. So I want to challenge you a little on that.
Okay.
Because
it may not be the most likely scenario, but I could see that happening.
Okay. So all right. So let's talk about this. Okay. So here's the thing: is Kendrick Nunn going to return to a team that re-signs Victor Oladipo and still has Herro when he knows what's happened to his minutes in the past? And
if they pay him his money, like they're going to have an incentive to play him, I think.
Listen, hold on. Wait. As long as they give him that qualifying offer, it doesn't matter what the hell he wants to do. They'll match whatever offer he goes and gets. So, I mean, like at that point,
are you sure? I mean,
I don't believe that they should match the offer. That's a different conversation. I don't think Kendrick Nunn is the answer personally. That's just me personally. I would not give him long-term big money. I'm not a fan of that idea. Mid-level money, we're on shorter years. Let's talk. But if they want to keep him, they can. I mean, it's not really up to Kendrick Nunn at that point.
All right, so let me ask you this: if you're Goran Dragic, I believe would want to stay, provided that they don't completely lowball him with the money, right? But if you're Victor Oladipo, do you want to stay if Kendrick Nunn and Goran Dragic are being retained and Herro is still here?
Or Lowry. So you're really, I see where you're going.
Okay. I mean, I'm just saying at a certain point, Brady, I mean, are there just too many guards that essentially no one really stands? I think part of the issue is when we talk about the team from a couple of years ago, we still got they had a lot of B- players, right? Like they had a ton of B- players, and nobody really stood out from anybody else. You had Josh Richardson, you had Dion, you had the whole crew, right? Rodney McGruder maybe less than that, but they were all sort of B-, C+ type players. I feel like the group they have is better than that. They're sort of at different stages of their development, whether it's a Herro and Nunn on one end, Herro on one end, Nunn and Robinson kind of in the middle, Dragic on the other end, and we don't really know where Oladipo is, right? But it does feel like there's nobody who really jumps out from the group unless Oladipo is 100% healthy, which he may never be again. And so it does seem to me that keeping all of them, you're just going to end up with the same damn problem next year that we're discussing this year, correct?
Yeah, and I mean, you're talking about 5 guards, and, somebody mentioned before Duncan Robinson essentially could play the 3. Mm-hmm. But I think the thing, the difference maker here is that Jimmy Butler's not going to play the 4. He's just not – that's not what he's going to do durability-wise. Maybe in a playoff setting you're capable of doing that. But if we're talking about him in the 3, that situation's fixed. That problem's fixed. You have 2 guards on starting lineup, 2 guards on the bench, and everything's okay. But right now, that's not going to be the case. Duncan Robinson and Kendrick Nunn, as far as I'm concerned, are going to be those 2. Mm-hmm. And it just comes down to, for the future, I just think it comes down to Tyler Herro. I think it's always what we're going to come back to. If he progresses and he comes back to the way he played, then I think they kind of figure out what they're going to do for agency-wise. They figure out Goran's timeline-wise. But until then, I just think they have certain guys producing right now. They have guys like a 34-year-old Goran Dragic who's actually playing games other than a couple of back-to-backs. Speaking of durability with the Victor Oladipo's, that's the same case with Tyler Herro right now. So I think I think this is a situation they're just going to have to play it, their Spoelstra quote day by day, because that's just the way they're going to have to go about it, because they just don't know what tomorrow is going to bring with these guys that you're talking about.
Alex, can Tyler Herro become the kind of player that we hoped he could become in the current circumstances? So beyond him, and we all know that they want him to get in the gym, they want him to focus a little better. I'm not taking any of that back. That is what they want, okay? I mean, it didn't come from me. It's coming from the team. But in light of all of that, like, can he thrive in this situation? Like, I feel like the Heat wanted him to thrive this year by basically handing him the spot in the starting lineup, and so he could seize it so that he could create this opportunity. And now I feel like he's come back to the pack to such a degree that I don't know how he necessarily breaks out of it. Does that make sense?
I do. I think the what you're saying makes a whole lot of sense now in the short term. Like, I think it's just going to be an uncomfortable situation, and it goes back to what you guys were talking about just now with the guard situation. Like, it's just a lot of guys there, and it's a lot of weird circumstances between Tyler, Depot, Goran's decline. You've got Kendrick, who has been the most up and down guy in the rotation for the past 2 years. Like, he was a starter, and then he was out, and then he was a starter, and then he was out. I mean, and now he's been pretty good for the past month or two. And so it's just kind of a weird situation going on in their backcourt. I feel like Tyler can break out of it. Like, I would like to think in the short term too. I just think everything is kind of muddied right now, where it feels like he's going to have to take advantage of the opportunities that he does get whenever he does come back. And look, shout out to the Mad Heat fan on Twitter who was, who put up that thread the other day and reminded me as a part of that thread, like, his stat line while he was starting was not bad. Like, the only thing that looked ugly was the 3-point percentage, which has kind of been the case all year. So I just think, again, it comes down to Tyler Webb. Do you believe that the 3-point shot will come back and that he can go back to being that outside in player? And because to me, the stuff that he's added and shown flashes of throughout the past year is stuff that you look at as positives going forward with Tyler. But in the short term, I don't know. Like, if he's not a good shooter in the short term, given the fact that Kendrick is their second best shooter right now,
right.
They're going to need Victor for his defense and for his rim pressure. Like, they're different types of players. Duncan is as set in that starting lineup and in the rotation as anybody else. Like, it's just like he needs to play well when he comes back if he wants to get back into having, a real spot in the rotation like he did before.
Yeah, John Richards' point, too many cooks can spoil the broth. And Kryptonite's comment, too, about what you were talking about Herro. And he never really got to play with the true starters this season. He was playing with Mo Harkless for a little bit. So I get the need for patience. But what Ira and I were kind of getting into today is, like, at what point is it about now, right? And at what point is it about the future? And I think it depends to a certain degree on how far you think this Heat team can go. So let's talk about that, because one of the things Ira and I got into, he said, what do you think is their ceiling? And I said, unless they get the right matchup, to me, they're a second round out. Okay. Now, they need some injuries against them. They need the right matchup. I don't like the Milwaukee matchup, by the way, this year. I think Drew has changed things. And I think Milwaukee's going to beat Brooklyn, honestly, and not just because what happened yesterday. I think even with Harden back, they beat Brooklyn. But that's just my view on it. But I see them as a second round team. And I was like, well, if they're a second round team, then you should be playing Tyler Herro, because you don't want to shelve your best potential asset, whether it's for you or for the future, and make it look like a guy you have no confidence in on a team that's not going to win the championship anyway. So I'll start here. Greg, what is, and I know you're Mr. Optimist here, but realistically, what is their ceiling? What is best case scenario for this team, the way they're playing now?
Best case scenario would be that somehow they gut themselves into an Eastern Conference Finals. I don't think and that is like the absolute every star aligns perfect scenario. Jimmy and Bam take over. There's an injury kind of situation. You just need the kind of lightning in a bottle stuff that happens last year. And that doesn't happen that often. That's the first time we all saw something like that. So I wouldn't expect it. I think second round is probably the most realistic measured approach. And I kept saying, like, that's why you can't shelve Tyler Herro, because whether he is, this is why I didn't want to offer up Herro for Kyle Lowry, because I felt like you could get Lowry this summer and then you can use Herro as an asset to shore up another part of the roster. Let's say if you bury him now, I mean, like, what did Michael Beasley get moved for? A second round pick. And I know that it's a different scenario and circumstances, but like when you bury a guy, it doesn't end well.
I mean,
it ends with him being brought back 3 more times.
Well, we're gonna close the show by talking about a couple of guys, whether or not you'd want to bring them back. But Brady, again, I feel like Herro is the most polarizing player on this team now for a variety of reasons that really have nothing to do with his play. But at the same time, this is a good point from Ben. At his current value, realistically, what level of player could he even get to? I mean, what are we talking about here? Like, I mean, if you think he's a future all-star, then you play the kid through his problems, right?
I mean, I think you have to. You're compelled to, because you got to see it through.
Right.
Yeah, I think the expectations, from a lot of different people have a big hold on this. Like, we're talking about, he's progressed in some areas that, in minor areas of his game that we'd be probably looking at a bit differently if the expectations weren't so high coming into the season. But with just looking at him long term, I think, Alex made a very good point. I think with Nunn, being the 3-point catch and shoot guy that he's evolved into, Victor Oladipo being the defender, Duncan Robinson being their offense. Every one of these guys that we're talking about has a thing. I just don't think Tyler Herro right now has a thing. You just don't know what you're going to get. Right. You don't know if he's, going to evolve back into that catch and shoot 3-point shooter that can play off the ball. You don't know if he's going to be the on-ball guy. I just think that's where it comes into play, that there's so much uncertainty. And I think we're just, we're not going to know until he gets back into play, until he gets consistent minutes again, back into a rotation. But for right now, I just don't think they can really figure out long-term, considering they don't know what he's going to focus in on.
All right, we're sponsored by MarkBrownPA.com. Thanks, Raphael, for the comments. We'll keep posting these up. We appreciate our producer, Manny Chang, doing that. If you want us to read them, for sure, make sure that you use the super chat here. Yes, Mr. Toledo.
Just wanted to say Tyler and Victor Oladipo can certainly use some of this. Look, this might bring them back a little bit quicker. Shout out Therapist Preferred. I will say, though, you didn't go, now that you put the banner on, good stuff. It's great stuff. The gummy literally just tastes like candy.
I got the other flavor. It's been helping me sleep the last 3
nights. It's dangerous. So they need to make a less tasty one, because I'm gonna start eating them like candy. Like they're so damn good.
Therapistpreferred.com. Make sure you use the code 5reasons. Spell it out. Not the number 5, number 5, and then spell out reasons. Obviously, there's no numbers for reasons. Yes, Alex, continue, Mr. Toledo.
You were going through that point. That question before that you asked Leif about, like, what's their best case scenario, and somebody laid it out earlier. I don't remember who. Like, what if? Okay, and I agree. By the way, the second round is probably their most likely outcome for this team. And we go back to the the matchup talk. Is there a path back to the NBA Finals for the Miami Heat? What if you get the New York Knicks in the first round, the Sixers in the second round, Bucks in the conference finals?
That's the case scenario.
That's the one path where it's possible.
Mm-hmm. I think they beat the Knicks.
I'm just brainstorming here.
No, I think they beat the Knicks. So I'm with you on that. That's the series I want. I think personally for our viewership, listenership, that's the one I want. I don't want to see Atlanta. That doesn't do anything for me. Let's get a 4-5 against the Knicks. I do think Philadelphia is a much better balanced team than the one we saw last year. Their shooting is considerably better. Their spacing, obviously, because of the shooting, is better. Embiid is better. He's found his role. I do think that they are a tough out. They've got defenders off their bench. But I do think Miami, I want to see Jimmy against Philly. I just think we're going to get that kind of Jimmy. And then, yes, if you get Milwaukee, I think it's a better matchup than Brooklyn. I don't like the matchup as much as I liked it last year. But with all of that said, there is a path for them, but they've got to be playing high level. But I want to get back to the point that Brady made about reliability, because I think that's really what we're talking about with Tyler right now. And I think the reason that you've seen Jimmy, and in particular, gravitate towards Ariza and Dedmon, okay, and you can see it, the way that they play together, is you know what you're getting every night, okay? You know what you're getting. Like, Trevor makes every cut hard, okay? Dedmon, every box out is textbook. Every screen is the right screen. Superstars want to know. They don't want a ton of other stars around them. I had somebody say to me recently, Jimmy just needs Bam and one other guy to step up offensively and get him to the finals. That's what I was told. One other guy. Last year, we know who it was, okay? I don't know if it'll be that guy again, okay? Goran. We saw some signs, whether it's Herro, whether it's he needs one other guy. But the thing I was told was Jimmy needs to know he can count on the other guys for the other things, okay? With Ariza, you know what you're getting. With Dedmon, you know what you're getting. Right? With Iguodala, to a certain degree, some of the time you know what you're getting. But that's a good point by Ben.
It really is.
Jimmy used to post Tyler on his social media all the time. That sure hasn't happened much this year. Ira and I actually discussed that last week on Onside Radio. Jimmy hasn't praised Herro one time in a presser the entire season.
No Tyler Tuesdays from him at all.
No Tyler Tuesdays. No,
he always talks about the team as a collective.
Team as a collective, but he used to single out particular guys. The only guy he ever singles out right now wears 7. That's it. And Bam, 13 and 7. Yeah. He does not single out Tyler anymore. It's been obvious. And also, so I did some research on this when we were, and there hasn't been as much hanging out as there was the previous year. We all know that Tyler went to Jimmy. Jimmy invited Tyler for a week in Chicago right after he was drafted so they could get to know each other. Tyler, I've reported this, flew down with Jimmy to help him close on a property down here. Okay, Tyler came with him. We haven't seen that this year. I'm not saying there's a rift. I'm just saying, so don't aggregate me that way. But what I'm saying is it doesn't seem to be the connection. It seems like, again, Jimmy is gravitating towards the guys that he can count on, right? Is that fair? Do we see this?
I mean, you read the tea leaves.
Yeah. Is Kendrick Nunn someone he can count on now?
I think so right now. I think that, we talk about guys changing. You're talking about a guy that went from his rookie year into his second year. He was inconsistent, but he's done this over a long period of time now, that even if shots aren't falling, he's doing other things now that he once wasn't doing, that I think they can trust him. And I think that, we keep talking about the catch and shoot. I think that's what saves him right now. I think, those shots are falling, but that's what saves him into the consistency, into the trust levels that they can place him off the ball and run offense, because I think that was the issue last year, that if you placed him off the ball, if he didn't have the ball in his hands, you were just not getting any production from him. And, another thing is that they're utilizing him in a lot of sets that when Duncan leaves the floor and he's not on the floor, he does a lot of the things that Duncan does on the floor with the running around off the ball type of stuff. So I just think that Jimmy especially, I think he's taken that trust level over when discussing the young guys.
I think that's fair. Lots of good comments coming in. Thanks again to Lynette for commenting as well. Make sure you check out insurancebylynette.com if you need any kind of insurance. I want to pivot here just a little bit. We got Dallas coming in here tomorrow night. Alex and Alejandro will be there. I'll be there as well. Big game. But I want to focus on one particular thing here.
Is the Slovenia crowd going to be in town?
Well, there's only about 5,000 or 6,000, but maybe they'll pipe in Slovenia.
They're going to be 4,000 of them.
Right. It'll be the whole damn building. But I do want to ask this one question related to an old friend, Josh Richardson. If you're moving on from Andre Iguodala, we know that Josh has now struggled in two places. Okay, didn't fit in Philadelphia. Was constantly complaining about the culture. I heard it just was not a fit. Okay, and Dallas. If you read the comments, the Mavericks fans want him out. They didn't work out for them. They don't like the Seth Curry for Josh Richardson trade anymore. What number would you look at Josh Richardson at as an Iguodala replacement, provided you're keeping Ariza? Alex.
It's a tough one, man, because last year you could have, not even last year, just a few months ago, you could have easily told me, easily gotten me to kind of be like, yeah, all in on bringing back Josh at a decent number. I think he's kind of a mid-level player right now. He is not any type of foundational piece. He's a nice role player on a team. I think just in his past two situations, not even trying to make no excuses for him, I just think both teams were missing a certain amount of shot creation outside of their star players, and especially this Dallas team, right? It's obviously the way they play ball is really different from Philly, so I'm not trying to compare the two, but you're talking about a team that outside of Luka Doncic, what is their shot creation? They just have Jalen Brunson coming off the bench. Do they still play JJ Barea? No, but I just think it's not a great.
Cuban decided the contract to let him retire.
Yeah, I don't know. I literally don't know. But with Josh, I just think he could help the Heat, but the fact that their offensive struggles have just kind of continued, and obviously stuff has developed. They've developed some counters here and there. I just think if I were to spend some money on a player that isn't a star level player, from the Heat's perspective, I don't know that it would be Josh. I think he could help them, but I would want somebody who brings a little bit more offensive firepower, just because I think this team needs it a little bit. I'm good on just bringing back Depot for that exact how much different is the price going to be between Victor Oladipo and Josh Richardson? And the thing with Depot is, that at least there's a chance that he gives you a certain amount of shot creation and rim pressure, where Josh is just going to be kind of a spot-up shooter on offense. And they're both great defenders.
No, they're great defenders. I guess the other reason I bring this up is as we talk about Tyler Herro, there was a feeling about Josh Richardson that he couldn't be traded, right? You don't want to trade him because he developed to a certain player in your system. You drafted him, not as high as you drafted Tyler, but you drafted him. He was a big success story for you at the number 40 pick. And there were some, to be honest, who weren't that comfortable even giving him up for Jimmy if it was part of a larger package. And now we've seen him go to other situations, and it hasn't worked out. He's not a player. Even Heat fans who wanted him before don't want him now. Is this instructive in any way towards the Herro and Robinson situation? I know they're keeping Duncan, but is it instructive to the Nunn and Herro situations? Because people didn't want to give up Justice and Josh, and both fan bases that they're with now are completely tired of those two players. Greg?
I mean, it could be. I think that Herro has shown a skill level and a pedigree that neither one of those two guys, Winslow or Jay Rich, ever did. Obviously, it's a lottery pick. So it's a different circumstance that way. And I just feel like the story isn't completely written with Herro yet. So we just have to be careful not to come to a sweeping conclusion on it yet. But to your point, like Jay Rich, I don't know that will he even get the mid-level exception? Maybe because of his age, but for the Heat, that would be a 6 guard. So like, we're just confusing these things more because I think we've proven that he's not really going to be guarding bigger wings that successfully, at least from my perspective.
I thought he'd be a great fit on a good team. I really did. I'm a little surprised that it's worked out as poorly as it has for him. All right, let's finalize here. Again, follow our sponsors, markbrownpa.com, therapistpreferred.com. Use the damn code 5 Reasons. Go to sleep tonight, recover, do whatever you need to do. 20% off. Mr. Salado has it there. We're going to do more of this on the 4th floor tomorrow night, and with a lot of us at the arena. But just real quick, I mean, Dallas, they present some problems for Miami, I would think. Starting with who the hell guards Luka, probably be a reason to start, right? Like, does that make the most sense?
Yeah, definitely. I said it before. I think even a healthy Victor Oladipo, they feel more comfortable putting Trevor Ariza on another team's starting point guard. And in this case, the starting point guard is basically a wing. So that makes even more sense to go that route. I just think they just have to be, I'm sure you said we'll talk about it tomorrow a bit more about game-wise, but I just think it comes down to consistency with this team that down the stretch now, the players are talking about it, this being, the pre-playoffs, this is coming down to this stretch. If they can just give the consistency on both ends that we saw last night, heading into a playoff game where you play against Charlotte, play that well, and then play against Dallas and have a drought offensively or have a terrible defensive game can really kill your confidence or kill the things you're trying to do. So I just think these games on the stretch, when just looking at both sides of the floor, the way they have to play, it's just going to come down to that. And it's going to probably be a lot of Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo again, because now it's going to come down to the stars, even though we said that against Charlotte and it was an all-around performance. But I think now it definitely will be.
All right, so just real quick, without, again, giving too much away, win or loss tomorrow night. They stay on this roll. I feel like that we start trusting this. I don't like the matchup.
Now, and there's the thing, guys. Like, Dallas just got beat by Sacramento. Yeah. That's their last game. That I hate when that happens. And they're like in the thick of a playoff race, just like we are. I mean, go Heat. But I'm not feeling it.
Unless Jimmy gets in his ear and gets Luka a 16th tech, he'll get a suspension. So
that thing is amazing. I wonder if he's going to get one of those rescinded from the other night. But
what's up with that? I'm not up on this.
Luka's become Rasheed Wallace, basically.
I didn't know this.
He's 1 tech away from a suspension. He's got 13 now, 13, 14?
So that applies to the 15. Playoffs as well.
Yeah, well, no. He would serve it in the regular season if he gets the other one now. But yes.
But I'm saying, what happens if he gets it at the end of the season?
Yes, it carries in.
It carries. So that's not ideal. Sorry,
we're gonna miss him for the playing game.
Sorry, Nico, that we don't have any guts. Speaking of no guts, by the way, I'm always averse to LeBron slander because he was so good to me. But man, that was weak last night. That was bad. I waited till the end because we'll let the guys at Full Court Press dissect it. I love LeBron as a human being, but I hate when he gets so passive aggressive and petty like that. It's just like, you're the best player in the world, dude. Don't be complaining about the circumstances of the play-in. Just get your team to the 6th spot. Okay,
that quote is funny. That made me laugh.
It's just. I mean, I don't know if he was kidding, but I've been in front of him when he said things like that before, and
he looked dejected. That after the game presser, he sounded like soft in his tone in a way where like he just felt dejected. I think that ankle's really bothering him, and it's just a weird circumstance for them. But I couldn't imagine Jimmy saying, "Oh, I don't want to go to a play-in game." Like, could you imagine Jimmy Butler? He's a psycho. No way.
Well, the other thing is Dennis Schroeder being out 2 weeks is huge for them. Huge. They have trouble creating additional scoring, and now they basically clogged up the paint. Can we all agree? Can we close on this one? Dedmon is better than Drummond. Are we in agreement?
Yes.
Yeah, he could actually finish at the rim.
So, So that's one. And Denman's better than Aldridge right now too, although we wish.
And Hassan.
And
Sorry.
well, that goes without saying.
That's debatable.
All right. Anyway, follow our group tomorrow night. We'll be back Post Up. We'll be back. 5 on the Floor. We'll be back. Also, Clutch Corner is going this week, but not too much longer. So make sure you catch them for the time being. Have a great night.